Roy Sasano is an activist for animal liberation. A few years ago, he was aboard the Sea Shepherd's Farley Mowat vessel in the Sea of Cortez on a mission to save the critically endangered vaquita porpoise and totoaba fish. Currently, Roy and three of his friends, known as the Excelsior Four, are facing 21 charges, some of them criminal charges, potentially carrying hefty prison time, in conjunction with the April 2019 Meet the Victims peaceful protest at Abbotsford's Excelsior Hog Farm, which revealed extreme animal cruelty. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Roy.
I am happy to talk about this anytime.
I always like to start with knowing about people's vegan story. I don't think I know your vegan story.
I'm not really sure exactly what it is myself sometimes. I know of obviously, like many people have been exposed to lots of vegan, vegan arguments and kind of pushing that idea on me through my life. At some point in, I think it was 2004, I had a vegetarian moment, I guess. My family's cat had passed previously, and on her birthday, I was just out at a restaurant with friends, eating a chicken burger, and I was looking at this flesh after I took the first bite. And I thought about this cat, and I was like, what is this justification here, right? In their minds, you know, these animals were equally capable of joy and suffering, and here I am just paying someone to kill one for me. So that was it for that. Within the next couple of years, I met my first vegan in the wild at work. It was a seasonal job, so I met him in the summer when we were both vegetarian, and we were like, oh, geez, we're only vegetarians here, cool. And the next year he'd gone vegan, and he said, hey, you got to watch Earthlings. I'm like, what's this? So I watched Earthlings, felt like dying for 3 days, and then went vegan that summer. So that'd be 2006, I guess. And maybe more interestingly, soon after, like I guess 2010, 2011, joining the Navy and going to Victoria. Previously I grew up in Edmonton, and I started to meet activists there. Like I knew of some activists previously, but I didn't really get involved until Victoria, and it's just small things, just leafleting and working on fighting the deer cull and just some street protests for the horse carriages, things like that. And then that's, I think, when I found myself fully committed and maybe starting to fully understand animal rights as a whole, not just this thing I'm doing, not just being vegan, but fully understanding, fully empathizing with the plight of the animals.
It's kind of an unraveling, it feels like to me, that, you know, we've grown up with this kind of program that says it's okay to do this. And we have to tell ourselves that, I think, as we're doing it in order to kind of survive. And then it's a total unraveling. It happens slowly for some. It happens really fast for others. But I was one of the slower ones too.
Me too. I was definitely slower, and which is why I can definitely relate to people who are kind of phasing into it. It's still frustrating to see that because you know, people who are moving slowly now, they have access to a lot more of this information. But I don't really understand that.
Well, now we have COVID is the ultimate why we should be vegan. People who are interested in investigating that more thoroughly. So let's talk about Seaspiracy, the new documentary. I think even for seasoned vegans, it's hard to watch and know and learn more. Again, we're always learning more. I watched it with some distant friends. We just all hit the button at the same time and then commiserated afterwards. I think that's a really good way to do it. What was your reaction?
There's obviously no one likes to see, especially, you know, some of that really up close and personal contact with fishes, and, you know, seeing them just treated like garbage, sharks, same thing. The Taiji and the Pharaoh scenes, obviously, like, geez, it's, you know, that's really very personal, and maybe it's kind of illogical, but seeing an individual like that just being killed for no reason, is it maybe has more impact on me, on most people, I'd say. And the interview with the Plastic Pollution Coalition really got me worked up, just seeing that, like, the same kind of crap that you get from the Vancouver Aquarium from Ocean Wise, but having it, sure, it was edited, whatever, but having someone in that position express such a dismissive and deceitful attitude regarding the reality of the failure of themselves and of their organization, and basically hold a hissy fit on there. They complained on their own blog about the fact that the footage was edited, but there's nothing, that moment should never come up. I don't care how long the interview is. You shouldn't be caught straight up lying like that and just flipping out just because you're being challenged. And it's very frustrating because you see the same thing again. Like we've seen that argument from the Vancouver Aquarium on various issues, and we see them continuing to promote eating sea animals, and not even saying that people have the option of not doing so. The closest they got, Oceanwise, Vancouver Aquarium responded to Seaspiracy, in fact, even though they weren't targeted by them, they weren't named. And I think for the first time ever, I don't think I've heard or seen anyone from the Vancouver Aquarium say that people could choose, like just acknowledging the fact that there is a choice to choose to not eat these animals was kind of huge to me. But of course, they still fell back on their tired old arguments about how they don't think everybody could stop at once or whatever. The kind of thing that ignores the fact that they're selling stickers to all these bougie Vancouver restaurants to certify their seafood, right? It's just really, really annoying. But overall, Seaspiracy really highlights that kind of, in general, the disconnect with ocean conservation groups, most ocean conservation groups, and one of the biggest, if not the biggest problem that the oceans are facing. And highlighting that disconnect was really great. I mean, it was a very rhetorical modern documentary, which is always worth a chuckle in a way. But despite that, the arguments put forward, the facts that put forward were sometimes shocking, and obviously the footage, I hope, snaps some people out of the status quo a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cognitive dissonance, right? It's interesting, and again, we understand where we used to have that brain that wants to kind of somehow justify that, it's okay what we're doing. It's what other people are doing. It's whatever they're doing, but it's not me. I don't have to take responsibility, and I don't have to tell people that they have to change their choices, right? Their food choices. I don't want to infringe on people's choices. Like, to see that those gears turning in people's brains is really interesting now, having been vegan for so long, right? And I mean, I used to do that too, I'm sure, but just the total disconnect of, why is it so hard to tell people to stop eating fish? It doesn't mean they're going to do it. Why is it so hard to just recommend that?
Yeah, and again, the ask that we've had, and I'm not sure, I obviously can't speak for the makers of the film, but it's almost like, can you at least put that up there as an option? If you're going to have a thing on your website saying, here are the things you can do, and one of the things is, buy stuff that has our sticker on it, then geez, like, I hope that you could at least say you could also just not eat this stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think it has to do with funding. That's really what the Seaspiracy, Cowspiracy, what the health, they all kind of revealed that connection to funding and how that affects the messaging.
Yeah.
And I think what it really revealed for me is just, it sort of reminded me how do we know what they're doing out there on the oceans, right? And as part of Sea Shepherd, that was your job, right? Was to go out and try to find these fishers. And as I recall, you mentioned that the porpoise was critically endangered at that time. I'm wondering what's the status of the porpoise now, and if I'm remembering correctly, that it was it was considered bycatch was the problem, that they weren't actually overfishing that particular species, but it was just part of some other fishing operation.
That's right. So the poachers in Sea of Cortez, Mexico, were targeting the totoaba, big fish that had become valuable because someone had convinced people in China that their swim bladders are magical in some way. And so it became this, and totoaba again are also critically endangered. The difference with them is that their numbers are, they're talking in the thousands, where the vaquita are in possibly the single digits. At the time I was there, they thought maybe 100, between 50 and 100 left, and the low estimate by the time we were done, or at least the next year, was in the like maybe 30. Very, very obviously it's a very bad situation for the vaquita, but the poachers are going after the totoaba. They would throw the gill nets and leave them in the water. Totoaba would get caught, vaquita would get caught. Actually, to be honest, everything gets caught in those nets. They're designed, the size of the netting, I guess the way that the net is, holes in the net are spaced out, is ideal for catching the totoaba by the gills. And it's a good size for catching vaquita by the head. But when we're pulling them out of the water, it's not as if you get tons of different species stuck in there. Everything from crabs to humpback whales. We're getting caught in these nets. Sea turtles, any species you could imagine would be there getting caught in these nets, and they were going after one. Not to say that I'm okay with that one, but bycatch is a huge problem. And when it's bycatch on top of a species that's already endangered and protected, then I guess it just adds a whole extra level of shittiness to the whole thing.
Yeah, and who's watching? Even if there are laws about what you can catch and what you can't, who's watching, right? So
yeah, for a long time no one was watching, and then probably a little bit too late. You get Greenpeace going out there to observe, you get Sea Shepherd going out there to observe, and then all of a sudden you get all this media attention. This is something to keep in mind for activism in general. All of a sudden there's media attention, like, oh, what are Sea Shepherd and Greenpeace doing out here? Why are they causing so much trouble? Why are, what's the big fuss? And then media comes in, and they, next thing you know, you're on CNN, and then President Obama is talking to Mexico and saying, hey, you got to do something about this. And a little bit late, but it does say something about what you can do as an activist to highlight a problem, even if you might not feel you're doing much good out there. Sometimes you'll be surprised at who picks up a story, and then the world starts paying attention.
Awesome transition into the story of the Excelsior 4. So it was April 2019. And this was sort of a surprise to many of us, that we didn't know that this was being planned even. And so suddenly it was on the news, it made big news. So can you walk us through what happened that day, Roy? How many people were involved? What did you guys witness there?
There were about 200 activists involved in that action total. Approximately 160 lined the streets outside of Excelsior Hog Farm in Abbotsford, BC. Pretty standard street protest. This is in response to some footage that had come out the week before. It was released by CTV and PETA, and I'm sure a bunch of other outlets that showed distressed pigs and piglets from inside Excelsior. A lot of them had all sorts of growths, and there's lots of evidence of neglect. The place didn't look like it had ever been cleaned. There were pigs that appeared to have just been left to suffer and die for who knows how long. And I think when people see that, obviously there's good reason to have like a street protest. On top of that, there were approximately I think 35-40 people who walked onto the property and got a glimpse of everything from the outside. First off, just dumpsters filled with corpses. These are the animals who were neglected and died, or who, the farm workers killed. Their bodies, I guess, wouldn't have been profitable for them, and just thrown in dumpsters like garbage. And once a group of people got inside, then they got to see for themselves. Now, the main thing that people witnessed inside was the gestation crates and the farrowing crates. The gestation crates being the very restrictive cages that they put mother pigs in prior to their giving birth, where they pretty much cannot move. They might be able to take a step forward and backwards, maybe kind of lie down. Gestation crates are designed the same way, but they're able to lie down so that they can nurse piglets. And this is their lives for months and months on end. And people got to see that. They saw, obviously, many who were in distress. One who, it's hard to think of any other way that she got cut up and bloodied like that, other than some sort of abuse. But either way, she was just sitting there in a gestation crate, bleeding, battered, and there's no sign of veterinary care. Even when there are vets on site, begging them to attend to her, they didn't seem really interested in that. They were very concerned about what the cameras were showing, more than anything else, and more concerned about getting us out.
So, okay, so over 200 sort of lining the streets, I guess, with signs and banners and things. And
signs, banners, guitars, all that activist shit, yeah.
And then about 30 inside with cameras documenting what they were witnessing.
Yeah, cameras, cell phones. Initially, I think there were 30 people were inside. Actually during the time where people were going in, the owners came barreling down between the barns where people were going in their truck, and started pushing people out and blockading the whole entrance. And I think there's like 15 people, including me, were walking the perimeter after that. Some people still got in afterwards, but walking the perimeter and mostly documenting things through windows, where you could still see the animals, just living a life that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Even just through the windows outside, you could see it.
And so, of these 250 approximate people,
about 200 total.
Okay, 4 of you were selected out. So I'm wondering, did the police show up the day of the event? I guess the farmers probably called the police, and did they single you 4 out that day, or how did that all go down?
On that day, once all said and done, I think there were about 50 people who were inside, and all were placed under arrest. Basically, this is, that point is kind of police negotiation. We got the media in to do the tour with Amy Serrano. Actually got to observe that personally. She was not allowed to speak during that media tour. She wasn't allowed to ask any questions or draw attention to anything. So it was very controlled, and the farmers tried to make it look as good as they could. Even then, it was a little bit disturbing what the media saw. But in any case, she got to go on that tour with them, and afterwards, in accordance with the agreement that the activists had with the police and the owners, everybody inside was placed in a under arrest, mass arrest, and then released on the spot, except for Amy. At that point, they took Amy away, seized her phone, and took her to the police station. and then ultimately she was released that same day. As for the rest of us, me, Nick, and Jeff, well, as far as the charges go, we all just, I think Amy and Nick were served by their local police. And Jeff and I just kind of found out from someone had taken a look at the BC Courts website and said, "Hey, look, you have a court appearance."
What?
And so we were expecting something to come in the mail or something, but I didn't double check because we didn't really care at this point. But I definitely didn't get anything in the mail. But at this point, I quickly had actually an activist lawyer, Lois Salmon, quickly. She didn't take me on, but she helped. I'm not sure what it counts as legally, but she contacted them and just said, "Okay, Roy knows about this. Were you planning on sending something?" And either way, they never bothered to follow up on that.
Well, that's weird. I mean, what if somebody hadn't noticed that your name was there? Then you would be charged with extra stuff, it seems like.
It seemed, yeah, it was kind of interesting how that played out. So I think there's a chance that maybe they're planning to just throw a warrant out there. I'm not really sure.
That seems a bit shady for sure.
But
yeah.
in the end, since we contacted the court to say, "Hey, we saw this, so I guess we're showing up." Okay, so they didn't bother following up.
Wow. Okay. So just to back up a bit, you mentioned that on site that day. How long were you there? And then what was this You mentioned there was an agreement made with the media and the police.
Right. So we went in there, and everybody was sitting in the room with the station crates, and the demand was we are not leaving until you let the media in. Right. And ultimately the police and the owners said, "Okay, fine." Now, it wasn't perfect. They didn't let the Intercept in. They didn't let CTV in, even CTV, just because they did a story about the footage, presumably. But they did let cameras in, and they did a tour, and the agreement was once that was complete, and if Amy said, "Yeah, they did the tour as agreed to," then we'll leave. So that was the agreement.
And because there were 200 of you, this was they. I mean, I guess that's just a pressure. Were you blocking the entry? Like, was there?
I think
or?
it's not the street isn't super accessible, so the police had shut the street down. So there's probably a little bit of they're probably feeling a little bit of pressure to get us all out of there because of that. But in the end, I think maybe because at least the police thought this is, can we just get the media through here and get this over with? And the owners were kind of thinking, well, if we get to control everything that the media does and where they go, then that looks better than refusing that request. So that's ultimately what happened.
Wow. Okay. So now COVID has raised this awareness of biosecurity now. And so I'm wondering did you guys take any precautions regarding biosecurity? And then when the farmers let what did you see regarding biosecurity? And then when they let the media in, was there biosecurity things going on then?
The activists took precautions that I'd argue equal to or better than anything that the farmers and definitely the media and the police were required to take. So we were wearing our monkey suits, are just covering everything that we had that we put on right before going in, and then after leaving, we covered our footwear right before entering the barn. Actually, we put on those booties to reduce the amount of anything from the outside coming in, and vice versa. for the most part, we even had dust masks on for the most part until the police and the worker, like basically everybody else is just ignoring that. So at that point, we thought, okay, whatever. I guess we don't need those in here. So yeah, based on the hidden camera footage that came out from Excelsior, they go in with street clothes. I'm hoping that they at least change shoes before they walk into the barn, but we don't have any way to tell whether or not they did. I'm guessing that their protocols would require them to change clothes before going in and leaving, and we went a little bit of an extra step there.
Okay.
Compared to what the workers do, compared to what the farmers required the police and the media to do. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I'd like to say, just on biosecurity in general, it's definitely a concern. And as activists going into these places, in a lot of situations, you want to be careful to do what you can to reduce the chances of transmitting anything, right? But activists are in there for, usually you're talking, as far as ag-gag laws goes, you're talking about minutes at a time of not close contact with animals, right? The workers are in there day in, day out for hours and hours and hours at a time, and then they go out into the world, right? So if we're genuinely concerned, this is a message for the BC government, Lana Poppin in particular, the Minister of Agriculture, who's drafting ag-gag legislation in BC. If you're genuinely concerned about ag-gag, and also I guess in the federal government as well, if you're genuinely concerned about activists and biosecurity, then one, you need to make biosecurity measures 100% mandatory, because it isn't right now. We have industry guidelines, recommendations. There are standards, but they can't be charged for not changing their shoes or whatever. So that's one thing there. You need to clamp down on the people who are in there day in, day out, and you need to actually re-examine what you're doing with having these industries where you have all these animals in this cramped quarters, filthy conditions, and having people working with them closely. It's another reason why we should be working towards outlawing factory farming, at the very least, as far as animal farming goes.
Right. Yeah, and it's another situation of who's watching, right? From what I understand, there's really no legislation federally or provincially. The laws are really lax, like what kind of treatment, even under normal circumstances, the gestation crates are legal, right?
For now, and the industry is really dragging their heels on any reform on that. There is reform coming to have bigger crates for the animals, but even that, it's still brutal. But even that, they're delaying. It was supposed to be coming in just a few years. Actually, sorry, it might have been earlier than that. But either way, the industry is pushing back for more delays on bringing that in. I mean, it costs too much to change things, right?
Wow.
So
and I remember when I was speaking with Jeff, who's one of the Excelsior 4, and he did undercover work for many years on many different farms, I'm guessing, and he was speaking about biosecurity, and he said, there's even trucks, like they drive their trucks from one farm to the other, and so there's really not, and we know that COVID and other infectious diseases have come from these animal farms, probably through the workers. And then now we know that workers can get infected and it can transmit back into various animals like the mink, and then come back in the variants. So meanwhile, Lana Popham, did you say, I know about the federal bill that there's a lot of activity because a lot of NDP members of parliament have voted in favor of this ag-gag legislation, which is couched in language to make it sound like it's protecting the animals. It's called an act to amend the health of animals, but it's really about ag-gag. So, okay, so you've got 21 charges against you, even before any ag-gag, which is, designed to stop this sort of investigation or frighten people away from doing these kind of investigation. There's 21 charges already on the books that they're trying to slam you with. And now you're telling me that Lana Popham is designing more ag-gag legislation? I did not know about that.
In BC, yeah, it's we're waiting for some more information on this, but through some freedom of information, the Attorney General said that amendments to the Trespass Act are being led by the Ministry of Agriculture, and there was lobbying from the BC Agriculture Council and the BC Chicken Growers Association. They were lobbying all sorts of government officials for ag-gag legislation. The last correspondence they had that I know of with the Ministry of Agriculture was, I believe, in September 2020, saying that they haven't seen anything as far as legislation goes to help them. But sometime between then and now, I guess we have word that the Ministry of Agriculture is leading the amendments to the Trespass Act, as it says, to basically bring ag-gag to BC. We don't know how far it's going to go, but it's definitely something they're working on.
So that's the NDP. And I'm wondering, so I know the NDP are logging the forest mostly because of pressure from unions, and this old idea of that you can only have jobs cutting down forests. I guess they don't have the imagination to think of jobs doing ecotourism or that sort of thing, or actually protecting the forest. But is it similar with the workers of farmers? Are they unionized? Is that where the pressure is coming from?
As far as I own, they're not. I think. I just think it's agriculture, and especially animal agriculture, is just powerful. They're good at lobbying. They really know how to lobby governments to get what they want, and they have tons of leverage because when you use the word farmers to the public, they have a certain image, a very positive image, and in a lot of cases, rightfully so. But the farmers who breed and brutalize and kill animals, they get lumped in with all of the people who really do the work that benefits society. And it seems that most of the lobbying has to do with them. And of course, obviously, as a community, they would want to kind of stick together, and mostly wouldn't want to throw each other under the bus on that. So I think that solidarity has given them just a powerful voice when it comes to public elected officials.
Well, and there's subsidies, right, going from government to prop up these industries. They give money to farmers, but as you say, that could be organic, plant-based farmers, that could be veganic farmers, it could be just conventional farmers, big farmers, little farmers.
And there's subsidies that I see going to places that I agree with for sure. There's not too long ago a huge investment in pulses and peas and in oats, because of for several reasons. One, because of plant-based meat alternatives, because of plant milks, because it's such a growing thing. The government is helping to kind of jumpstart that kind of thing. But there's the institutional, historic connections to help the meat industry stay competitive, or I guess to help them keep their prices within the reach of Canadians, just using Canadians' tax dollars to make sure that at the consumer at the end doesn't bear the full cost that they can see. Right, it's kind of deceptive, obviously.
Right.
Maybe the biggest example we can see, and the word subsidy. You'll see the industry not use the word subsidy, and I think legally they're correct. I think there's certain distinctions you can make, a difference between a subsidy and a grant or a investment, all these different things, words that government officials use and the industry uses. But one huge one that's in the news quite frequently is with the dairy industry, right? What's it called? Supply management system. There we go.
Applied management system.
Supply management, right? It sounds like nothing.
What, right?
But it's basically it's not money necessarily directly to the industries. It's money used to fund a program to help the industry stay competitive, to prevent competition from foreign markets, basically to keep the price of their products in the right area so that Canadians can afford it, but that they make enough money.
Right.
Yeah, and the industries, the farmers involved in supply management make way more than the average Canadian does in income. So there's a lot of pressure from different groups. This is where
right.
kind of the interests of vegans and animal activists sometimes align with people we normally wouldn't want to align with, because it's a program that the government spends tax dollars on to help wealthy, or at least people making well above the average income, stay in that wealthy or average income position, and have fewer barriers to their business. It's artificially helping them stay very, very profitable.
Right. A lot of parallels to what goes on with oil and gas, it sounds like.
Yeah, very much so.
And we know that the divestment campaigns that environmentalists have launched, to get universities to remove their investments from oil and gas, and other, other organizations have been quite successful. The divestment movement for that is quite successful, and so we should definitely be doing that as well, I think, with this. Now, it occurs to me also that there's a little bit of a difference here, because when people are lobbying the government, that just basically means they meet with their officials. Any of us can do that. We can all set up meetings, we can try at least to set up meetings with our elected officials. But when Big Ag goes in and talks to their elected officials, the chances are that our elected officials that they're talking to are consumers of their products. So it's kind of a conflict of interest in a way.
Yeah, I always,
right?
it's kind of something that occurred to me, and I'm sure that people have thought of this for decades, is it's funny when you make these arguments regarding animal rights versus people who slaughter animals. The only neutral party would be, I guess, vegans, people who neither profit from the slaughter of animals and nor do we enjoy those products, right? Whereas the general public would think of the vegan as someone who's biased in these issues, where it's kind of the opposite, where the vegans are the only ones who don't make money from it, who don't enjoy the products. Everybody else is biased. Everybody else has a conflict of interest.
Well, I would say that we definitely want to end the slaughter of animals. I mean, we are kind of working on their behalf, right? So maybe the animals are the neutral ones in this, although they have that.
Oh, no, the animals definitely have interest in this. They're directly affected. I know it's I don't think my argument would ever fly in court or a public debate, but when you really think about it, in any social issue, there's people who might benefit from something, people who might be victims of something, and then there's a neutral party, right? And if you look at it that way, then if you consume animal products, then you are biased, and it's funny. You'll never see people see the typical person, the person who eats meat, as the unbiased one, whereas the vegans are biased. But it's kind of the opposite.
Right, we're the biased ones, yeah, for sure, and we're the ones trying to program everybody into doing something.
Right. That's
Yeah.
good to see it.
So this is a good reason why we need to elect vegan people to all levels of government. And it's interesting with the federal ag bill C-205 that it has passed second reading, but the Liberals didn't vote for it. It was a conservative and the NDP. And there is one Liberal that we know of, Nathaniel Erskine Smith, is it?
Yeah.
He's a vegan, and I'll bet that had something to do with that, right?
I think there's a good chance he's become. I think he might be quite well respected within the party, and I mean that's where the things fell. And you look at that. I saw the article from Animal Protection Party showing when they linked the breakdown of votes. I'm like, are you kidding me? What? Okay, I'm glad that the Conservatives didn't win the last two elections, whatever. But the Liberals are obviously, I think you and I both have very, very serious complaints about them, very serious criticisms about them. And yet they've helped push through animal protection laws that we never would have had we never would have dreamed would happen. And they're opposing ag-gag for their own reasons, but at least they didn't succumb to whatever pressure the NDP succumbed to support these bills, or maybe
Right.
it's mind-boggling sometimes, and I guess it just kind of shows that how complicated politics can get sometimes. Based on ag-gag, I normally wouldn't. I normally wouldn't want to endorse any of the political parties, even the Green Party. I wouldn't really want to endorse normally. But as far as picking of the major parties to pick strictly from an animal rights perspective, who would have thought the Liberals might be a better choice than anyone else? I wouldn't have expected that to happen.
Yeah. They got to work on their foreign policy is definitely a problem for me voting for them. But yeah, it's kind of eye-opening. So when anybody who cares about animals, who's willing to look at these videos and see what's going on with the animals, would think that the government should be actively writing legislation to protect the animals and to protect all of us in terms of biosecurity, and to hire people to inspect these so-called farms. But none of that is happening. They're busy writing extra laws when already there are 21 charges. So let's get back to the courtroom now. So you've gone to court, and you've all said that you're not guilty. And now it must be very stressful. It's been going on since 2019. How long are you going to have to wait? And what exactly are you waiting for at this point?
Right now, there's a lot of things that were coming into place. Now, the Crown kind of had to decide what direction they're going with this. A lot of back and forth between them and our lawyers. We have to make some decisions, both and we didn't finalize our legal team until quite recently, even. So there's a lot of things that happened on our end that would have delayed things anyway, even though the court is already delaying things. They have to figure out a way to schedule this long jury trial in the BC Supreme Court during a pandemic. So there's that. But at this point now, I think everybody's ready to schedule this. We're expecting it probably not this year. Expecting it to go to trial next year now. And yeah, so I think we've looked through the evidence that the Crown has provided to us. Lawyers are talking all sorts of different strategies. We're finding interesting things. Obviously, in that evidence, there'll be a lot of police notes, police reports, statements from the owners of Excelsior Hog Farm, statements from the SPCA, from their vets, and we're just going, oh geez, this is I wish we could just just show that to the world right now, and say look at this, look at this, look at this dirty, dirty industry. Look at how they seem to be. I mean, I don't want to say that the police are helping them, but I mean, it kind of looks that way. And I'd love to let people see for themselves and make their come to their own conclusions on that. Definitely don't want them to jump to any conclusions, but you know, just kind of see. And I'm looking forward to court, because hopefully through that process we'll be able to point these things out.
So have you been able to show any footage yet?
The footage that's come out is basically all been released.
To the media. It's been, I think the media did some, and then it's on YouTube. But within the courtroom, were you able to show any of it?
No, there's nothing. We haven't had any actual court sessions. We've had court dates.
Oh.
Where, you know, you go in, you basically confirm that you understand your charges, and then you go in again and you say not guilty. And so there's all these dates that come up, and mostly it's just technical things between the court and the lawyers, just sorting out where we are, when the next date is. And hopefully we think this month, we were hoping last month, but maybe this month we'll actually get the trial date set. So we'll know exactly when it's all going down.
And so when I was speaking with Malcolm in Ontario regarding the mink trial, he was saying that their strategy was to go with a judge verdict rather than a jury verdict, because then she or he would have to write out their reasons for their decision, and so that if it needed to go to appeal, they would have that information. So, but you guys have chosen a jury trial. Do you know the logic there?
A couple things, but the main thing is that with a jury trial, like looking at the reasons why things turned out the way they did, like what the content of the footage, and being able to point out that not only is there animal cruelty, horrific animal cruelty, but there's illegal animal cruelty in there. Now, we thought that a judge might be quick to dismiss that kind of fact, based, you know, and looks strictly at other things, like, you know, where did the police say you were, what did they say you did, and that's it, right?
Right.
Whereas, and you saw a little bit of this in Malcolm's trial too, so it's not completely dissimilar, but we thought that having a jury, they'd be more likely to, I guess, consider the whole thing, like with the whole of their humanity, what's just, what's right, what's wrong, and they would be more open to listening to the arguments regarding, I guess, the cruelty and the criminal cruelty that that Excelsior Hog Farm was involved in, and keep that in mind when deciding if people who helped expose that cruelty should be guilty of the charges that they put down.
So when you guys went and talked to the BC SPCA, it's a bit of a story, I guess. So somebody reported something, and then the BC SPCA was slow to respond, and so you guys called them on that. And during that conversation that you had with them, it was revealed that the reason that they couldn't act on the footage that was provided was because it was illegally obtained. So the footage that you guys shot on that day, that will be allowed into this court trial?
The footage from April 28th, we don't know how much of that will be allowed in. As far as we know, the Crown or the police are hesitant to get into that because there's a process to verify the footage. I'm guessing that any activists who took footage there would be very happy to verify their own footage, but we'll see about that, I guess. What they want to be part of the trial.
Okay.
So I guess, you know, there might be something there. there is clearly the footage that was released through CTV and PETA prior to the event is going to be part of this. I think the hidden camera footage should be part of it, but
Yeah,
just to establish what happens inside Excelsior Hog Farm on a normal day.
yeah, we should know this. I mean, even people who eat animals should know where it comes from, right? I'm happy to know where all my legumes are grown. I'd love to see where those beautiful gardens were and greenhouses. So yeah, let's hope that happens. Okay, so I'm sorry for all this stress that you're having to live with, but I mean, this is really historical. This is unprecedented. I think this is probably the biggest animal case in Canada's history so far, is it?
It might be like I hope it has the impact. I hope that people pay attention to what happens in these places, and I hope not just for animal rights. I hope people can see the value there is in activism and journalism and whistleblowers and informants, all of these people who take risks to help expose something that's wrong in society. But definitely, I hope that in the end, like for us, the four of us, we can go to prison, whatever. They're not going to slit our throats. So we hope that people will see the plight of the animals themselves. And empathize with that and realize that these are sentient beings who we treat like just mere property to do with whatever we please for profit, up to and including slitting their throats. And I hope people start to really let that sink in.
Right. And for no good reason. I mean, we know the health implications. We're living with COVID as a result of all of this. So just finally, Roy, Regan Russell, was struck down by a transport truck the day after Bill 156, also ag legislation couched as some kind of farm protection bill, but really it's about scaring activists. It was enacted in June of last year, 2020. And the next day, she was at a vigil where she stood like for years. She did this activism, just honoring the pigs going into the slaughterhouse inside the trucks. And she was hit by a transport truck. I mean, that seems beyond coincidental. And it really affected me, I must say that. And the documentary.
2 documentaries.
Yeah, there was a killing, I think is one of them, right? That was really for anybody, even if you don't care about the animals, like they're taking away civil liberties. These laws that they're imposing are designed to shut us up and keep us complicit and stop whistleblowers, and everybody should be concerned about that. Did you ever have a chance to meet Regan in your travels?
I didn't have a chance to meet Regan. Obviously, when we all heard about her death, it was, it really hit hard, right? Because here's someone who, whether it was through some kind of intentional malice or just through a lack of caring, just because it's easy. It's very clear to me that the people working in these industries start to see activists as enemies and just as garbage on the road that they joke about killing us all the time, right? They think it's funny. They get into this mindset that if someone is inconveniencing you in some way or you disagree with them, then it's justifiable to kill them. Not in those words, of course, but this has happened with Extinction Rebellion. This happens with Black Lives Matter, and it's happening with animal rights activists.
Oh, I'm thinking back to the war in the woods on Vancouver Island back in the 90s, where it was loggers against the environmentalists, and there was some violence that went down there. Yeah.
It's clear that sadly, when people find their choices, their income questioned in some way, on ethical grounds, that the people questioning it are bad. And if they're if Regan is standing in a crosswalk maybe not in the normal way that someone would be in a crosswalk, then I'm guessing that a lot of these drivers are just like, it's fair game, you know. I'll just keep driving here, and if I happen to kill someone, then so be it. And maybe now, I hope that mindset has changed a bit. Like, I guess one thing I say a lot in, because you get into arguments with these people on social media, is if I were driving, and this is me with a regular old class 5, you know, any normal, like amateur driver, you might say, license, sees someone in a road and they might be annoying me, or they might be on not in their right mind, or whatever, you know, whatever it is, I'm not going to kill them. I'm still going to stop, and you know, I might, you know, let's say they're doing it just to be jerks. I might yell out the window and say, "Hey, stop being a jerk." But I'm not going to kill them, and I'm certainly not going to say it's justifiable to kill someone for being an inconvenience on the road. Whereas they are speaking as if it's justified, and I can't see how within those circles, within this industry, that kind of attitude doesn't subconsciously become real to them, where they think they are justified in killing. I'm sure this driver, even if he didn't say, "I'm going to kill someone," I'm sure part of his mind was just thinking, it doesn't matter. Like,
The law passed, right? The law is there to protect
so
whatever happens.
That's tough to see. And it's tough to see that the law is not really coming down very hard on this person who either murdered Regan or was neglectful to the point where he caused her death in a way that is unacceptable for any driver, let alone a professional.
Yeah, he got off with a traffic
yeah.
charge, right?
Yeah, for now. They're working on that, because no one's actually seen the security footage that shows the whole incident.
Oh.
So there might be more to come on that. I hope at some point the police, at least to Regan's lawyers, will show them the full footage of what happens, and then, but I think they might actually have to sue to try to get access to that video.
Wow.
I'll also note that Regan's death at the time hit us pretty hard, but a little while later, someone noticed that I think it was the week before her death, one of the last things Regan did was donate to Amy's legal fund.
Oh.
And yeah, that was it obviously brings mixed feelings there, but it brought a whole nother layer to just the type of person that Regan Russell is, and how she wants to support everybody in the world, including other activists from thousands of kilometers away.
So maybe there's people listening who want to donate to your legal fund. I'm guessing you have legal expenses here.
Yeah, Amy's legal fund has become the Excelsior 4 legal fund on GoFundMe. There's going to be there's going to be some legal expense there, but you know, obviously it's times are difficult. But if anybody would like to go check out, you can go on GoFundMe and search for the Excelsior 4 GoFundMe, and you know, if you have the money, definitely it could be very helpful to us. It will be very helpful to us as trial comes up. Our lawyers are all definitely working with us to try to keep expenses low, but we're still looking at, I'm going to say the high tens of thousands of dollars at least when all is said and done. It'll be okay. But anybody who has the means, definitely we would definitely appreciate the support, because it'll really help us defend ourselves and bring the plight of the animals more into the light. Whereas if we have more constraints there, then it becomes more about just trying to make the problem go away as quickly as possible as far as the trial goes.
Well, and it's nice to contribute even just a small amount and just be part of it, right? Just say I'm on their team. It's nice for you guys to know you have lots of people on your
Oh,
team.
geez, yeah, it's not even one of the biggest things that came out of seeing at first when it was Amy's legal fund, was the sheer number of people who are contributing. Obviously, it's great when there's to see the dollar amount go up, but just the number of people who care enough to even just click on that GoFundMe and look at it, that changed everything for me anyway. Just thinking of the support that we have in BC and Canada, and in a lot of cases across the world. That's definitely one of the best things about this whole thing, is seeing how many people care, and just seeing that we are at a point where a lot of people in the world care, and we can actually change things. Hopefully, a little bit within our lifetimes, we'll see something significant.
Yeah, hopefully before we all go extinct is what I'm thinking at this point.
Right.
Seriously. So, okay, well, thank you so much, Roy. And I'll continue to follow along and see what's happening, and hope and prayers and thoughts and prayers and all that stuff too, right? Is there anything that you want to say before we go?
I guess I mean, I don't know if the audience is mostly already vegan, but please, if nothing else, check out Seaspiracy, check out Cowspiracy, see what activists are doing. This isn't one thing to keep clear, is that animal activists, they can show you, they can produce clear evidence, clear verifiable evidence for their claims. It's there. This isn't just, what, sometimes we're bonkers, whatever, but we can prove what we're saying. And we just need society to start embracing that idea that non-human animals and marginalized humans matter, have interests, and not just say that, but really understand that, and see what you can do in your daily life to help, or at least to stop contributing to injustice against all these beings.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking that, it's a different argument than, if you have a political disagreement with someone, who knows who's right? Like, who knows what kind of economic system is really the best? Or, you have opinions, you have strong opinions, and you argue your opinions. But this is black and white. I mean, this is clear that it's wrong, I think, to do this to animals. And it's just a matter of coming to that realization, right? We have all the evidence on our side that we're not supposed to be doing this. It's not good. We're dying of health issues related to it. We got a virus. It's yeah.
I guess to me, the big thing is that non-human animals, and all humans included in that, I guess, are sentient and have their own interests. They can suffer, and then when you can show people, or even just describe to people that as far as the non-human animals go, what we do, the confinement, the breeding, the slaughter, we wouldn't wish this on ourselves or anyone we care about the slightest, or even people we hate. We wouldn't want these things to happen to any of them. And the only thing that's stopping us from changing is the fact that we're currently doing it in such a large degree. It's tough for people to come. How can something that is so common, like that the majority of people participate in, how could that possibly be wrong, right? And that's the only thing. It's justified because it exists, which is not really I'll call it illogical. That might be the wrong word, but I'm going to say it's an illogical justification for something. It's something existing, something being widespread and common, doesn't tell you it's right. And you have all the reasons in the world to re-examine that belief.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Roy.
Where you? Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's that? It just drains out onto the floor? Or are they drinking? And up. In now.
Oh my god, this is so hard.
Yes, we do.